Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has called an immediate meeting with the country's premiers for tomorrow. He wants to deal with the threat of 25% trade tariffs from Donald Trump. And Ontario Premier Doug Ford is comparing Trump's threat to being stabbed in the heart. Al Sweeney is covering this story tonight for us and joins us live with the details. Al.
Matt, Trump hasn't even been sworn in for his second term as U.S. president yet, but he's already shaken up Canada and its economy. Trump watchers are hoping this is just a negotiating ploy for a new trade deal, but if Trump does what he says, economists say it's going to be painful. At Queen's Park today, Premier Doug Ford made a point of standing in front of an American flag as he spoke out about Trump's tariffs.
Last night at 6:35, we received the biggest threat we've ever received from our closest friends and ally, from President-elect Trump.
In a posting on his Truth Social site, Trump said thousands of people are pouring through Mexico and Canada, bringing crime and drugs at levels never seen before. So on his first day as president, January 20th, he will sign all necessary documents to charge Mexico and Canada a 25% tariff on all products coming into the United States to force them to control their borders. After that came out, Prime Minister Trudeau was on the phone to Trump.
I had a good call with Donald Trump last night again. We obviously talked about laying out the facts. It was a good call. This is something that we can do, laying out the facts, moving forward in constructive ways.
Trudeau says he'll talk to the premiers tomorrow about what has to be done. Premier Ford was grim-faced as he spoke out about Trump.
I found his comments unfair. I found them insulting. It's like a family member stabbing you right in the heart.
Ford says it's insulting to compare Canada's border to Mexico, but says there is a problem with drugs and illegal immigrants along the Canadian border, and Canada better deal with it.
We want to work together, we will work together, and we'll resolve this problem.
Trump's 25% tariff would push up the cost of Canadian products sold in the U.S., including oil and gas, automobiles, and lumber. The exports are worth $600 billion a year to Canada. And with more than 40,000 independent businesses selling goods in the U.S., the tariffs could mean layoffs and closures.
It may need to actually shrink their workforce. Even investment plans could be put on hold, and in some extreme cases, it may put the existence of the business at risk.
Our standard of living here would fall fairly noticeably and fairly dramatically in a short time. What we would see is incomes for many families that depend on export industries fall all across the country.
But it doesn't end there. If Trump imposes tariffs, Premier Ford says Canada will fight back.
Hopefully we won't come to that, but if it does, there is no choice. We have to retaliate.
That could spark a trade war.
If Canada enters a trade war with the United States, we will almost certainly lose.
The first time Trump was president, a trade war over tariffs on steel and aluminum broke out between Canada and the U.S. That led to Canada signing a trade agreement with the U.S. and Mexico that Trump called a victory. Economists warned that new tariffs in a trade war could push Canada into recession and widespread economic decline. Matt?
All right, thanks very much, Al. Meantime, the Canadian dollar fell to its lowest level since May 2020 following Trump's tariff threat. The threat adding a further drag on the loonie, which has been moving lower against the U.S. dollar since September. The loonie was at $71.07 U.S. in late morning trading after dipping below 71 cents U.S. earlier in the day. Economists say the Canadian dollar was already weakening because of the softer economy and recent interest rate cuts by the Bank of Canada. For more on Trump's tariffs, let's bring in political analyst Stefan Dolgert from Brock University. Stefan, do you think this is real or a negotiating tactic?
Well, I think it is primarily a negotiating tactic, but there is a real threat behind the tactic, as we have just heard. I think Trump is basically talking to two audiences: his domestic audience and the international audience, mainly that is Canada in this case. His domestic audience, essentially his voters, voted him in with the idea that the problems in the United States are due to foreigners, either foreigners inside the United States, undocumented immigrants, or foreign powers, hostile trading partners outside of the U.S. So really, this is in line with him speaking to his audience and saying, here, I'm going to make those people who are the cause of your suffering, I'm going to make them pay. I think it's a negotiating tactic, though, in that he is, in terms of talking to the Canadian audience, I think wants things like access to the Canadian dairy market. We know that Trump has previously complained about that. Obviously, also some issues with aluminum and steel we heard with tariffs previously. So I think what he wants is more concessions, better access for U.S. products into the Canadian market, and he's going to bluster his way into those.
Now, we know this would hurt the Canadian economy, but wouldn't this hurt American workers and the U.S. economy as well?
Absolutely. It would hurt American workers. It would hurt them to the tune of several $1,000s per family per year if these tariffs were actually implemented. It would hurt certain sectors, especially sectors that are dependent on the auto industry, which is so integrated between Canada and the United States. It would hurt them even more, which is why I think, again, that it is mainly a negotiating tactic. But Trump doesn't, in some ways, seem to understand how tariffs work. So it's not clear that he understands just how badly this would hurt the United States economy. But of course, it would hurt the Canadian economy even more. And I think that's really what he's banking on.
As we heard, Doug Ford had some very strong language on this today. Do you think the premier could play a significant role in pushing back on these tariffs?
I think it would be a minor role, I would say. I mean, it's good to hear a kind of united front that we are hearing Canadian politicians from across the political spectrum, liberal and conservative, who are kind of standing up to this bullying behavior. I think mainly the way that Ford might be able to influence matters would be in terms of making those connections with U.S. trading partners who are close to the Ontario economy and persuading them to lobby on our behalf that this would be disastrous for all of us. So I think there, some of the kind of relationship building that has already done surely over the years, I think that's the kind of thing, leveraging that would be helpful.
Final question for you. Trudeau said he had a good phone call with Donald Trump. If you're the prime minister, how do you handle the president-elect?
It's a real problem. I think what we're going to see him doing is, and what I would say is advisable, is to cultivate relationships with folks in the U.S., either, our trading partners, trading states, but also some of Trump's inner circle. This is something that was done back in 2018 that Trudeau already knows how to do. And then also to threaten targeted tariffs in retaliation. This is something that we did back in 2018 with targeting bourbon as an import from the U.S. For tariffs. So I think a kind of mixture of trying to play nice, but then also maybe playing a little bit rough with the threat of retaliatory tariffs. That's really what they've done before, and that's probably about the best thing going forward.
That's political analyst Stefan Dolgert. Stefan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.